Hey guys, today we're working on author's word choice and the effect that it has on the overall tone of the story. So right now I'm looking at Lamb to the Slaughter. This is the story that we're going to be using primarily in marking period 3. So we always want to have it readily available so that we can dive back in and we can apply the reading skills. So what I'm going to model for you right now in this video is I'm going to read through the first 2 paragraphs or so into the slaughter. And I'm going to identify some keywords that I think stand out to me that speak to the author's tone, right? And when we watched the video before, we learned that the author's tone is their attitude towards something or how they're feeling towards something, right? So let's see what the author's tone is like in the first 2 paragraphs. So follow along with me as I read. The room was warm and clean, the curtains drawn, the 2 table lamps alight, hers and the one by the empty chair opposite. On the sideboard behind her, 2 tall glasses, soda water, whiskey, fresh ice cubes in the thermos bucket. Mary Maloney was waiting for her husband to come home from work. Now and again she would glance up at the clock, but without anxiety, merely to please herself with the thought that each minute gone by made it nearer the time when he would come. There was a slow, smiling air about her, and about everything she did. The drop of a head as she bent over her sewing was curiously tranquil. Her skin, for this was her 6-month with child, had acquired a wonderful translucent quality. The mouth was soft, and the eyes, with their new placid look, seemed larger, darker than before. When the clock said 10 minutes to 5, she began to listen, and a few moments later, punctually as always, she heard the tires on the gravel outside, and the car door slamming, the footsteps passing the window, the key turning in the lock. She laid aside her sewing, stood up, and went forward to kiss him as he came in. So I'm going to stop there for my purposes. So automatically there's some word play here that I caught on to as a reader. A lot of times often when we're looking for tone also, it's easiest if you are either reading it aloud to yourself or if you're listening to an audio version, which of course we have available for you linked into the classwork. So here's the words that stood out to me. Warm and clean, glance, please herself, slow smiling air, tranquil, and wonderfully translucent. Those stood out to me as words that seem to have connotations behind them, right? And we've studied that the connotation of a word means the emotion behind it. So it kind of got me to understand the tone in the beginning of the story. Now, here's another caveat to this, however. You and somebody else, another peer of yours, might disagree on the tone of the in the beginning of the story or anywhere in the story, really. But that's okay, because remember, in ELA class, everything is correct as long as you can. Hopefully you said support your answers. The tone in the beginning of the story is, I'm going to say it's eerily tranquil. And what do I mean by that? I mean calm before the storm. Whenever we kind of, and I'm using my prior knowledge, I've had these experiences before in life where things are just like too quiet, right? And that gives you kind of an eerie feeling of like, uh-oh, what's about to happen, right? So the words and phrases that I picked out, warm and clean, glance, please yourself, slow smiling air especially stood out to me, as well as the tranquility that was described as being a curious tranquility, right? So the fact that it was described as being a curious tranquility, that stood out to me, that it wasn't truly just a tranquil nature. It wasn't just a nice quiet evening at home waiting for hubby, right? It kind of sets it up as like this eerily tranquil, calm before the storm to me. Now I need to say, how did I get to that, right? So what I just walked through with you verbally, I'm going to write down here. So argumentation of how the words impact the tone of meaning. Words and phrases chosen above impact the tone of the story. The tone of the story in the sense that they are primarily calming words, but then surrounding them are contradictory words. For instance, She is pleasing. She is pleasing herself, not pleasing her husband with a welcoming nature when he gets home. Also, the tranquility that she is described as having is described as being curious. By having this dichotomy, so dichotomy is the two, right? So the positive and the negative of word choices. It led me to believe that the tone of the story in the first two paragraphs is a calm before the storm, or an eerie tone. Okay, so what I just walked through with you verbally is what I wrote down. Now I'm defending my answer. Could you say, Miss, there's no way you see that? I only see it as positive. And could you have chosen other words or even the same words and had a different argument than me? 100%. But what we're doing as readers is we're diving into the text and we're looking at what specific words got us to understand what we believe the tone is, right? Yes, there's author's purpose behind it. There are certain words and phrases that they input for certain purposes, but maybe that's another reason why they use the words and phrases, right? To kind of have the reader being unknown right now. Maybe they want you to kind of be in this situation of, wait a minute, is this a happy story, a sad story, a sad story? What's going on, right? So by analyzing those words and by kind of exploring our own thoughts as to why the author did it, we're in essence analyzing the text, right? And we're doing exactly what the author wants us to do. Dig in a little bit deeper and question, why were those words put there? What connotations do they have? What emotional connections do they have that speak to the tone and the overall text? So now you're going to be in groups. If you don't want to work in groups, let me know in the chat and tell me you want to work independently. But I'm going to assign you a page number of the story. And then I want you to do the same exact thing that you just saw me do. I want you to tell me, what is the tone? What's the overall feeling that you got, that you think the attitude of the author is signified in that page? And then what words got you to understand that to be the tone? Okay. And then before you leave, of course, you're going to pick one of these words specifically that you focused on and tell me, dig in a little bit deeper, and how did that word specifically get you to the tone that you've identified? All right. And at the bottom, please don't forget to do your error work. Let me know if you have any questions.